One way the quality of our thinking can really drop is really evident in the way we normally communicate with each other nowadays. We've all got used to it and it's become a bit of a habit. And it's really a result of what you might call the age of communication. It began before mobile phones. It began really with the speeding up of life and life becoming more complicated. And that is really at the heart of this type of thinking. It manifests mostly in the way we communicate with each other. A simple example will be that someone says good morning to you and then asks how you are, and you begin to answer that question, and halfway through they interrupt you because they feel that they've got the gist of what you've said. They're perhaps not even aware that they've picked up on certain phrases, think you mean something, and already start to respond. And you hadn't even finished. So quite often you'll stop and you just let them carry on. And that communication can feel quite efficient, quite effective, it's quite fast. We cover a lot of ground, but the quality of thinking goes down. It can happen on a one-to-one, it often happens on a phone call, but it can happen in groups too. There's a lot of speaking, there's a lot of yeah, and a kind of I get what you mean, and people interrupt with cool and yeah, and they nod. But what they're not doing is really allowing the full quality of what you're saying to sink in. Because allowing something to sink in, it goes to a place where you can really think about the thinking that's come to you from someone else. And actually, if you do that, people often experience it as a bit weird, as a bit strange, because they're not used to it. It often involves silence. It can involve calming down and sitting a bit still. And so when somebody does speak to you, when you want to raise the quality of your thinking, you really have to give them a gift. You have to give them a proper listen. You lend an ear. And so they say something to you, and if you can, what you try to do is calm down. You try to really listen to what they're saying. And that doesn't work if it's too intense. It's often better when it's gentle. And it can take a while to get used to this new habit of properly listening to someone. And what you do is you listen. You listen right through to the end. And even then you don't necessarily speak. You might notice certain responses already arising in you from that library of cliches and stock responses in you. And there may even be the beginning of some thoughts of what you want to say back to that person. But wait. Wait gently and wait patiently until that person has finished. And then some silence. As you allow what they say to sink in, you think about their thinking in what they've said. You might look at it from different points of view. And then you may form your response. Now, of course, this thinking slows down. It feels uncomfortable. We're not used to it. But actually what you might find is that this thinking is of a higher quality, that this thinking is far more real and responsive, and it comes from a deeper place in you, a place where you're more active in your thinking. You might also discover that what you say is different from what you would have said as an immediate reaction. And then communication is really born of that listening as much as it's born of that speaking. The quality raises up because we're actually allowing listening and silence to be part of the mix and not just speaking. Now, this is a way of raising thinking to a place where you may actually discover that the overall outcome of that conversation can sometimes be very different to when you hurried it and when you only half listened. You can even do that online too, on your phones. That, as you often see on computers and on phone platforms like social media, the thing is designed to say that someone is typing and suddenly you're typing too, and it's all very quick, and you're reading stuff but you're only half reading what's being texted at you, and that's very similar. And actually this is another way of raising your thinking, that whatever message you receive, be it by email, be it by text, slow down. Read it, allow it to sink in, and only then write your response. And maybe even read back what they've said a couple of times and read your own response. You may well find that you edit it. And that's similar with silence and listening face to face, that what you say sometimes is less, but less can be more. What you may notice over the long run is that as the quality of your thinking is raised, that you feel more free, you feel more confident in the truth of what you're saying. And in the end, what that leads to are better relationships.